Locked in the bunker, shadows shake. One man clapping secrets awake. Board games living, dice they break. Echoes pounding, hearts they quake. In the bunker, board games rolling. One man clapping, stories growing. Hard rock thunder, speakers blowing. Clapping loud, the unknown showing.
Hal's been hard at work at a new theme song, and it is banging. I got notes of Green Day, lashings of 90s hard rock. She's been hard at work behind the scenes with some new gear, and I have been blown away. Welcome to the sound of one man clapping. I am the one man coming to you direct from the bunker, where I'm still licking my wounds from a thorough lube-free fisting by too many bones. True story. On with the show. This is a podcast about board gaming culture, and growing old gracelessly. Today we're going to look at some of the games I've played over the last week and thoughts on those. We're going to touch on what's coming in with incoming! 4 exclamation marks. And we're going to make me feel better about my life choices with FOMO Mofo. We are, of course, going to give someone the clap. We're currently working through a limited series of my favorite things, one episode at a time, and this week we'll be looking at what it means to be a solo gamer. A lot of playing with yourself. But before that, I just want to touch on something that's very near and dear to my heart. Something that's affected me very profoundly over the last weeks and months and years. And that's daughters. Oh, my sweet Jeebus daughters. Ugh. Now on to my favorite part of the show. The games from this week. It was a great week for gaming. I played many games. I only won a single game. So it was not a great week for wins. It was a great week for quantity. My win rate this week was 1 for 14. Damn, when you spell it out, it's not great. But I say all the time, I like to win. I love to play. And it was a very good week. Starting off with number 1, Thursday night's Arkham Horror is back on the table with Super Trooper. We got through 2 scenarios. No permadeath, no rebuilding characters this time. They were great. Top to bottom, I think we squeaked through one of the scenarios by the skin of our teeth. The other one was a little bit more comfortable. We've got that frickin' -5 in there, I think, right now, and it is murder. If you haven't played Arkham on normal difficulty, which is what we're doing right now, normal difficulty, it's murder. Murder left, murder right, murder up, murder down, murder in the back door, murder in the front door. It's murder all the time. But it is a blast. I think we've got one more scenario to go till we find out what's actually at the end of the path to Carcosa. I'm mildly excited, partially terrified. I'll be sad to see it over, but the good news with Arkham Horror and Super Troopers Personal Collection is there's always another campaign. So we got one more. Hang in there for the grand finale. I'll let you know how we go. Second game of the week, we played Honeybuzz, a recent crowdfunding delivery also for Super Trooper. Honeybuzz is charming as flip. Honestly, it is super cute. The production, the artwork, the boards, the bits, the pieces. It has Beeples. Beeples. I mean, it's not my first game with Beeples. Apiary had Beeples first. Although Honeybuzz, I think, was a game first. I think so. The Beeples in Honeybuzz. The stripes on the bees are cut all the way through the Beeples. You can hold them up to the light and see light through them. They're teeny tiny. I'll throw a pic up later on the socials. They are so cute. Really tactile. Beautiful pieces. Beautiful play. Of course, you know, Super Trooper subscribes to the if you don't get every add-on for the game, you haven't got the game at all. So we had the little gourmet pieces for pollen. We had the 4 different little gooey types of honey that you are really hard-pressed not to just throw down like lollies because they remind you of the berries from Everdell. The pollen could have been a bit better. It looks a little more like a little sack of gold than a little bag of pollen, but I guess to bees it would be a little sack of gold. It's a work placement. You put Beeples out, you bring Beeples back, they do stuff while they're out. You've got one little Beeple that's zipping around the meadow collecting honey. You've got other Beeples that are going around collecting larvae. And you're also trying to lay tiles in your hive. And the way you lay tiles does good things. Sometimes, if you plan far enough ahead that those good things happen together, then you have good turns. If you put them in the wrong spot, you have average turns. It's a blast. I'm really looking forward to playing again. I would love to get this to the table with the Fox. I think she would absolutely love it. It was a long delay crowdfunding, is my understanding, but it's finally here and it looks great. It was designed by Paul Solomon, art by Hanny Heidesek, and published by Elf Creek Games. Played another game of Ark Nova. That is a perennial favorite for Super Trooper and I. It was a 2-player game, which means we were able to get it up and down in about 75 minutes. Spoiler alert, I did not win. I won't bury the lead on that one. I got thoroughly trounced. And when I say thoroughly, I mean thoroughly. I don't think I've ever been beaten in Ark Nova by so wide a margin. I think my score ended up in the negative. Not my worst game of Ark Nova, as it turns out. I once played a whole game of Ark Nova and ended up with one chameleon in the zoo at the end. That was after 4.5 hours of playing Ark Nova. I had one chameleon. And he was a suicidal chameleon because he was in that zoo all by himself. It was horrifying. But I always enjoy it. Win, lose, or draw. We always play now with the Marine Worlds expansion. Marine Worlds, if you're not familiar with Ark Nova, you've got action cards. You play the action cards. It's almost like an action programming sort of thing. Where you place the card and where you pull the card from will dictate the strength of your action. And the longer you leave it in your little factory, the stronger it gets. Marine Worlds introduced asymmetrical action cards, which is really, really cool. So before you start, you sling a few of these out and you do some drafting. And what you end up with is 3 of the normal action cards, 2 of the asymmetrical ones. They're not wild or crazy. They just throw another small layer into sort of, I guess, what you're able to do. And what you're able to do that's different to your opponent. And if you're able to, I guess, leverage that with your unique map, then all the better. I'm not usually clever enough when I'm starting Ark Nova to make sure that my asymmetrical cards and my map and my endgame goals all add up, but I always have a great time. You know, pretty much you spend the time at Ark Nova trying to build a zoo while never having the right cards, the right turns, or enough money to do what you actually want to do. And just when you think you're about to have your power turn, your opponents ruin it all. It's magnificent. I'm very much looking forward to the next map pack, which is due out sometime in the next 2 to 38 months. This is designed by Matthias Viggy and many, many artists and published by Furlan Games. On a side note, I learned a little trivia this week about Ark Nova. I'm hopeful it's true because it's really cool. Apparently, the ornithologist sponsorship card in Ark Nova is allegedly a photo of Miss Elizabeth Hargraves, designer of Wingspan. And if that is true, that is awesome. Yes, so that's another loss. After that, played another game of Scholars of the South Tigris, which I love. Love painting, love color, love art. And I love the use of color as an actual game mechanic in Scholars. It's dice. Scholars is dice, and you're rolling the dice, and the dice pips will tell you what you can and can't do with them in some circumstances. In other circumstances, it's the color that will tell you what you can and can't do. And in yet other circumstances, it's the color and the number of pips. Particularly the research track, which tells you what you can and cannot do. So you have all the primary colors, all the secondary colors, and then you also have primary colors of workers and white workers. And workers can be attached to the dice to increase them in number, to change their color. For example, you could put a blue worker on a red die and make a purple die. And purple die are rare and hard to come by. It's an absolute brain melter of a little ecosystem of color. And I think it's fantastic. You're trying to translate scrolls. You've got end game goals of certain scrolls you want to get or certain colors of dice. There's all kinds of things going on. And the timer of the game is great. You can fiddle with the timer of the game at setup if you want a slightly shorter game. We always play the epic game when it's just 2 of us because we get through it pretty quickly. And it's fantastic. I lost that game also. So I lost that game of Scholars also. Also, I think badly. I think I lost that quite badly. The good news is the finale in the South Tigris series is due any day. We might touch on that again in incoming. That is Inventors of the South Tigris. And then next year, there are a series of expansions, including a mini campaign, which pulls them all together. So you could play Wayfarers, followed by Scholars, followed by Inventors, followed by a frontal lobe transplant. And what would be really nice is if they took some kind of storage solution in there as well, because the inserts for Wayfarers and Scholars are so bad. Did I mention I lost? Yes, I lost. We followed that up. Again, Super Trooper and I, when we're just gaming 2 of us on a Friday, we get through a lot of games. We're pretty quick, and there's no mucking around. We got a game of Sagrada in. Sagrada is a charming little another dice game where dice are rolled from a central pool and you're drafting the dice and you're building lovely little stained glass windows. Sagrada is cute, it's charming, it's endlessly brain-boggling. There are different levels of challenge for stained glass windows that you can draw at the start of the game, and it's great. The fox loves Sagrada, the peanut loves Sagrada, I love Sagrada. Super Troopers screwed me on the last draw. No hate drafting. Honestly, like, hate drafting in Sagrada is a thing, apparently. I don't know how you possibly could, because you're only putting something like 25 or 20 dice down in the entire course of the game. And if you spend your time hate drafting on the person across the table and pulling something they need, chances are you're screwing yourself just as badly. But yes, he screwed me. I got royally fisted in the last round. It ruined 4 full rows of completion. You know, no hate on, but thanks, man. And consequently, I also lost the game of Sagrada. Sagrada is by Adrian Adamscu and Daryl Andrews, art by Peter Wogan, and my copy is published by Floodgate Games. There are a number of publishers over the years that have published Sagrada. Interestingly, there's a legacy game called Sagrada Artisans that I'd really like to check out. It's basically a coloring in exercise. You have a coloring book that you fill in throughout the course of the legacy. It looks like really breezy, easy fun. Since the Fox enjoys a bit of Sagrada, you never know. Coloring in could be a part of my Sunday night future. Maybe I'll win one of those. And we followed that up again. This the next day. Super Trooper was having a party for Buttercup. That's right. We were at Buttercup's for a party. And so we were playing stuff that was a little bit lighter. And there are a lot of games going on late in the day. There was a lot of wine and cheese going on in the early part of the day. And so we got a little bit of Harmonies in. Harmonies, I'm sure I've talked about Harmonies before in our limited relationship. Harmonies is a little Cascadia-esque. You're building environments for animals to move into. It's endlessly charming. It's endlessly pleasing. It's tactile. The art is gorgeous. You're building things up in 3D. And I love it. Love Harmonies. I'm looking forward to introducing the Peanut to Harmonies. She plays Cascadia. And though Harmonies has been compared to Calico in some ways, Harmonies fits solely into the I'll play anything but Calico category. Spoiler alert, I did not win at Harmonies. Harmonies is by Johan Benvenuto with art by Maeve de Silva and published by Libella Games. We followed Harmonies up with 2 games of Spots back to back. I played those with 2 legends, Sarah Lee and Better Call Saul. I don't get to play with them very often. This was many, many, many wines into the evening, and so Spots was a freaking delight. If you haven't played Spots, it's basically a push your luck game with dice, and that's to say it's basically gambling. We could easily throw a layer of betting on there each round, some poker chips. I'm not saying it would be a good idea, but you could. You're rolling dice, and the pips come up, and you're filling cards that have Dalmatians on them with little outlines of dice with different numbers of pips. And if you fill your whole dog, you get to score that dog. First person to 6 dogs wins. If you happen to roll too many dice to bury in your yard because they don't fit on your dogs, you bust and you lose all your dice. And it is hilarious. It's hilarious when it happens. It's hilarious even when it happens to me, which it does all the time. The dogs all have names. The 2 house favorites are Bert and Doog. Bert is a dog, and he only has 1 pip, and it's right at the back of the dog. You can imagine where that is. Peanut thinks Bert is the greatest dog that ever lived and never left dogdom to move to Spots. When Bert comes out, it is all hilarity all the time. My personal favorite is Doog. And Doog, while Doog needs, I think it's 4 or 5 dice to fill, Doog is hilarious. Doog is a cow who's trying to hide amongst the dogs and is disguised as a dog, and it is freaking hilarious. We played 2 games back-to-back of those. I did not win. I did not win either of those, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. It's okay not to win. It's probably not okay to lose 13 out of 14 games, but I'm okay with it. Really, I'm okay. I'm okay. Art's by a trio of designers. Art by John Bond and published by CMYK. CMYK makes some great games. So moving on to the Playing With Myself category. Canadians take a drink. I played 3 games of Ironwood. Ironwood is a new release by Mind Clash. It is a 2-player battler. It's got lots of sort of Root-esque vibes on the board. It's not Root-esque in the gameplay, but it plays really, really well. So I played a two-handed game to learn it. I can't win that game. And then I played a solo game each way. I played one as the Ironborn and one as the Woodwalkers, and they both play really, really differently. In Ironwood, you are trying to achieve something. You know, the Ironborn are trying to build 3 forges, which gives them mountain supremacy, and the Woodwalkers are trying to collect 3 magical totems, which gives them magical spiritualness, 11 out of 10 goodness, and makes them very, very happy. So they win happy. So you're trying to accomplish different things, and they're accomplished in vaguely similar ways. Not really. The Ironborn are building cities and then converting them to forges. For that, they need gems. They're like the dwarves of Moria. TM, Lord of the Rings. No copyright infringement here. I'm just mentioning them offhandedly. And the Woodwalkers are trying to discover where these magical totems are. It's kind of a hidden placement sort of mechanic. And then they've got to grab them and whisk them to the outer realms of the board. And if they do that, they get to score one of them. There are plenty of ways that the Woodwalkers can stop the Ironborn from getting the gems they need to build their forges. And there are plenty of ways that the Ironborn can stomp on the Woodwalkers to prevent them from getting their little totems back to safety. It's a really, really good game. It's very quick. The turns are quite snappy. The decision space is not quite agonizing, but bordering on, because often in some of these cards you're playing a card, you're taking an action. It might say take one of these actions, and they're all really freaking good. It might say take 2 of the 3 actions, and they're all really good. Or it might say take 2 of the 3 actions, or pay 3 gems to take all 3. And gems are hard to get. But you want that 3rd action. So you go, stop it, take my gems, you stupid game. Take my gems, I'm taking all 3 actions. And then you lose. Or not. I won as the Woodwalkers. I lost as the Ironborn. I loved playing both factions. I think this is a really clever piece of game design. It fits a niche in my collection that I don't have. It takes about 40 minutes to play. And I'm really looking forward to playing it with another human, because I think it's a little bit of beat up, but it's beat up back and forth. It's not like you've got to choose who your target is. You know, it's like, well, I'll hit this guy again because he's close by. It's like, no, it's one-on-one. It's every man for himself, and I think it's great. It plays great. I don't think it overstays its welcome. You've got a stack of about 35 cards, and in reading the rule book, it sounds like it's pretty rare to actually get through all your cards in a game. I know in the 3 games I played, I didn't get through all of the cards at all in any of the plays, which means that you're always having different things to choose from, other than you have 3 standard cards. You've got 3 standard cards that come back to your hand every round, and then you get more cards out of your draw deck. Ironwood is excellent. It's got a great table presence. It's got beautiful production. You've got lovely wooden pieces for the Woodwalkers. You've got chunky metal pieces for the Ironborn. I think that I'm going to reserve my, call on the faction balance. My first impressions seem to be that the Woodwalkers are easier to play, but that may just be my personal play style. And it's great. I really am really happy that I pre-ordered this from Mindclash. It wasn't a crowdfunding. It was a pre-order through GameFound. And I'm delighted that I did get it. So it's a great game. This is designed by Maël Brunet and Julien Chaput, and the art is magnificent and done by Vilo Farkas. Vilo Farkas has done many of Mindclash's games, including Tricerion, which is another one of my favorite for art, and by Cristina Calada, and it's published, of course, as I've said 3 or 4 times, by Mindclash. So, I guess you know, as I've only won 1 of 14, I've already disclosed which game I've won. I did not win the last game I played last week, which was one of my absolute favorite solo games, and that's Too Many Bones. I love Too Many Bones. I don't own all of Too Many Bones, but man, I own a lot of Too Many Bones. And for a guy who doesn't really like dice, I'm not a huge fan of dice. I was very hesitant going into Too Many Bones, and I was absolutely overwhelmed with the delight with how the dice work in the game, how they're mitigated by all the different choices you can make, by the fact that you don't have to use certain dice, by dice have a plan B. If you haven't played Too Many Bones, you play a single character or in this case, I played three-handed, but you play a single character called a Gearlock. They're all wildly different. You've got ones that chuck grenades. You've got ones that are healers. You've got ones that have guerrilla warfare. You've got one that rides a mechanical boar and chucks darts at people on the battlefield. And every time you successfully complete a little encounter, you've got a deck of cards as your encounter. When you successfully complete an encounter, you get to level up your Gearlock and get new cool stuff to take into the next battle. That's if you win the encounter. If you don't win the encounter, you go into the next battle. The next battle gets harder, and you don't level up. There's no do-overs. You're going into the next battle underpowered. And if you happen to fail that one, you're going into the next battle, which gets more powerful. The strength of the battle, the strength of the encounter is dictated by the number of Gearlocks you're playing, multiplied by whatever day you're up to. So if you're playing 3 Gearlocks and you're on day 3, you're playing a level 9 encounter. And if you haven't leveled up twice, it doesn't go very well. I just got to say. I was playing, as I said, three-handed. I was playing one very simple Gearlock who's a healer, who I'm quite fond of. I was playing one moderately complicated Gearlock who throws grenades. And I was playing one complicated Gearlock who, as I aforementioned, rides a mechanical boar and throws poison darts all over the place. The problem is, if you haven't leveled up, you don't get any said poison darts. You can't unlock these special things. So you're basically just running all over the battlefield on a mechanical boar, throwing half-ass punches by round 4. On this particular scenario, I needed to achieve 6 successful encounters in order to take on the big boss at the end. You get 9 days to do so. I did not do so. So I got to the day 8 encounter, which with 3 Gearlocks, you're running at a level 24 for drawing the bad guys. The bad guys all have different point allotments to them. 24 is a lot. And I went in very underpowered, and it was a very, very short encounter. That said, I really love Too Many Bones. I think it's an excellent game system. I think it's an excellent game. I think it's probably one of the most overproduced games that money can buy. I believe we talked about this last week. Anything by Chip Theory, it's an ecological disaster. You know, it's all neoprene and plastic, and it's not even light plastic. It's heavy plastic, and it's a lot of it. It's plastic chips, it's plastic dice, it's plastic trays, it's neoprene mats. Even the cards that you're flipping are plastic. You know, it's the only game I put on the table where I would not be concerned if somebody spilled a whole bottle of red wine, because you can just chuck the whole game in the washing machine. Honestly, it is absolutely bulletproof. That is said, it's not a complaint. It's just in 2024. It's a hard dichotomy to, I suppose, absorb, to know that you love this game so much and you want to leave the future, in a good state for your 3 daughters. But oh, you love this game. And I do love Too Many Bones. The spiritual successor coming out later this year to Too Many Bones is going to be The Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Era, and I am very much looking forward to that. There are a lot of early reviews that say this is a Too Many Bones killer. I don't see it for me personally, because the world of Too Many Bones is so unique. The stories it tells are so unique. The art and the characterization is so unique. And I'm a Skyrim, Morrowind, Oblivion guy from way, way, way back. So I'll be playing Betrayal of the Second Era for Elder Scrolls. I'll be playing Too Many Bones for Too Many Bones. And never the twain shall meet. So those are the games we played last week. Now on to my favorite part of the pod. Incoming! Usually there's a constant stream of incoming games from either pre-orders or crowdfunding. However, this week it's relatively quiet on the incoming front. 0 notifications this week, so my postman is probably working a second job to make ends meet. I do hope his kids are getting enough to eat. I do. They're nice kids. Sometimes they drag parcels up to my front door for him. He needs 3 or 4 of them to just get them up the stairs. So they're all lovely. They're all well dressed. They're all well fed usually. I hope they're getting through the week. However, in our extended gaming group, the deluxe edition of Darwin's Journey has just been delivered. It seemed on arrival it was missing the metal coins, so there was panic, because no metal coins means the game is entirely unplayable. If you haven't got all the deluxe components, you just Super Troopers on the verge of throwing it in the trash. The last minute he found them, so jubilation, huzzah! So the game is playable after all. Good news is, we're hopefully going to be getting that to the table tomorrow, and I'm very excited to do so. Darwin's Journey is a game that looks very promising. It's a very Euro-y Euro. It's got all the Euros on the Euro, the Euro, all the Euro, but it looks great. I love the theme, and I love the production of this game. So I'm very much looking forward to that. On a side note, I guess it's not so much a game, but as you may recall, if you've been listening, the Peanut, the Fox, and I, we play a bit of Quacks of Quedlinburg. Quacks of Quedlinburg's a fun little push-your-luck game that doesn't take a lot of brain power or planning or decisions or, consciousness, but it is fun. And it comes with these lovely little cardboard tokens. And the other day we were playing with 000's set. And 000 has everything for Quacks of Quedlinburg. He's got the lovely little stands for the ingredient descriptors. He's got all the little acrylic things. And the Fox sat down on the table because she loves herself a bit of Quacks. And she started playing and she looked at me and she said, "Why doesn't our set look like this?" And I said, "You're in luck. You're in luck, Foxy Lady, that I love you so much that I went out and I have ordered, not all of these, but some of these. I've ordered all of the lovely little acrylics." So here we have, you can hear that? The lovely, just chunky goodness. So we get to replace all of our lovely little cardboard chits with the acrylics. They are gorgeous. They feel much nicer when you're digging them out of the potion bag. They are a worthy upgrade. I'm not going all in on the silk bags and the little flip-top boxes that hold everything, but these arrived. Very, very happy that they are here. And as I sit here pumping my voice into your ear holes, I'm periodically checking the Australia Post app because Aeon Trespass is literally imminent. It is shipping in Australia. And I am very much looking forward to getting that out. Not playing it, because it's going to take me 3.5 years to learn how to play it, but just touching it, getting everything out, priming those models, having a go at painting the models, maybe watching a few videos. I just think it's one of those, this will be the biggest game that I have ever been privy to. And so that is still incoming. It should be here any day. It may even be the first bit of video content. I may flash some unboxing stuff up when it comes in because it's very exciting. And that's all I've really got for incoming! 4 exclamation marks this week. But at the latest in ArcGate, we've just informally established a new game day rule in our group whereby the host gets to choose the first game of the day. I, for one, am a huge fan of this new rule, as I am the unchallenged ruler of the bunker, and game day is often at my place because I have a beautiful space to play games. I look very much forward to wielding this newfound power as granted to me by the people. The next day we have at least 3 people in attendance. I will be forcing my friends to play ARCs. Accordingly, the new friend tryouts that were previously announced are hereby postponed indefinitely. Now on to my favorite part of the show, FOMO Mofo, where we talk about my ongoing struggle to not spend money on more games just because there are more games. I'm working on this extraordinary shortcoming. I really am. Looking around the bunker, I still have, I wrote it down here. I still have 35 Calyx cells empty. Seems like a lot. However, I would calculate that the event horizon of maximum occupancy in the bunker is no more than 18 months off at the current rate of crowdfunding fulfillment. So I got to get picky. And so venting here allows me to sort through my greatest fear, missing out. As always, this is not an exhaustive list, merely those campaigns that I'm watching closely, either because the games suit my play, they fill a need that's poorly filled, or is not filled enough, or they have pretty toys. Sometimes all 3. Want to start with an Enormity update. Enormity is a new title, a new IP that's coming out by Into the Unknown. I did mention it briefly last week. I believe the day after I recorded, they uploaded a little bit of teaser stuff on their socials. At the time of this recording, there's still no BGG entry for this, but it's now appearing regularly on their social channels, and it looks to be very exciting. It looks to be a bit of a love child between Nemesis and Aeon Trespass. And if that is the case, I will be watching this very, very carefully. People who game with me know me. You clappers out there should know by now, if you don't already, I absolutely love me anything space-themed. And while I've not had a chance to play Nemesis because it doesn't... The randomness of Nemesis is that kind of fingernails on the chalkboard for me. That's that stuff that I struggle with a bit. But the game looks amazing. And if this is Nemesis meets Aeon Trespass, using Into the Unknown's inverted combat paradigm, which I really like the looks of. This will be pretty much what I will be spending my early 2025 money on. They're saying it's coming out in winter, so that's anytime out to next March. I will be your own personal PSA as more info comes, whether you want it or not. Next on FOMO Mofo is Shallow Sea. Shallow Sea is a new game coming out by Bad Comet Games. Bad Comet Games of recent Wondrous Creatures fulfillment. It seems to be they're doubling down on the cute and charming factor. Shallow Sea is a little bit of a, it appears to be anyway, there's not a lot of information. It's a tile placement, animal placement. It looks a little Cascadia-esque with maybe a little more going on. But the little fish meeples, oh my god, the little wooden fish. This is going to be Finding Nemo on the table. The little wooden fish are beautiful. And I know I said originally, I think a couple of episodes back when we were talking about Wondrous Creatures, that their next iteration didn't look like it was going to be much for me. I'm still not sure that this is going to be the kind of game that I will be demanding that goes on the table. But I can tell you it'll be the kind of game that Peanut demands goes on the table. So I'll be looking at this more closely and getting a little more information, a little more detail, and bringing it all to you. It's not live yet. There's no date that I can see for when it goes live, but listen here. Going live this week was Skara Brae and the Anarchy, a dual release on Kickstarter by the team of Phillips & Hill, that famous New Zealand legal firm. Game design trio. Skara Brae and the Anarchy are two different games being crowdfunded simultaneously, which means that these design guys have way too much time on their hands, that they're designing games two at a time. It's like getting a game from Reiner Knizia. You know, by the time you've got the shrink off, the next one's been announced. Skara Brae has been called a resource manager with a fresh twist. I've had a quick look. It seems that fresh twist is waste management. Maybe I've misread something. But it seems like you're managing a village and you're also managing the garbage. I mean, it looks great. It looks like, your usual sort of Hill, Phillips & Phillips output. The similar sort of art style. It's got that Ezra and Nehemiah sort of look and feel. I don't think the theme's for me. I like resource management. I'm not sure that managing, and if I've totally misread what I'm looking at, yeah, sorry guys, but it does, I think that one's going to be a no for me. The other one they're releasing, though, is The Anarchy, which is the sequel to Hadrian's Wall. I love Hadrian's Wall. Hadrian's Wall is a really, really fun bit of game. It is 1,000,000% multiplayer solitaire. It's a solo game, right? It is a game you put on the table, you set it all up, and you play 3 or 4 games all by yourself, 15, 20 minutes a game, and it is a blast. You put other people at the table, that's great. They're going to be staring at their paper, you're going to be flipping cards, and they're going to be doing their same thing. Tick, 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 scribble, 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 tick, 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 huzzah! That's 2 huzzahs in one episode. I must be in a mood. It's great. Hadrian's Wall is super fun. The Anarchy looks like Hadrian's Wall had triplets on the same amount of paper. It's a lot of little boxes, and it looks very combatastic, which if you're playing a flip and right solo game, I think that's exactly what you want. More of the same, more combos, more huzzahs. One of the things I really like about this campaign is they're also offering dry erase boards. If you've played Hadrian's Wall, you know you get these 2 great stonking notepads in the box. You pick the box up, and it's not a big box, and it's about 4 kilos. And you pull it out, and there's 2 reams of paper in there with these little tick lists on them. And every time you play a game, every player needs 2 pieces of paper. Well, now they've got these whiteboards that have Hadrian's Wall on one side and the Anarchy on the other. And I think that's really, really clever. I don't think you have an option to order those without the paper, but it does mean that when your paper pads run out, should you choose to play 1,000 games of Hadrian's Wall or the Anarchy, that you will have these whiteboards when you're done. And I think it's clever. The other thing they're offering in this campaign up front is a custom folded space insert for Skara Brae. And I wish more game companies would do this. I've had good inserts, I've had medium inserts, I've had shithouse inserts, right? Like, there's some shocking ones out there. I've never had a bad insert by Folded Space. Folded Space does their work. I am a big, big fan of Folded Space. And to have a Folded Space insert included in the campaign that you can order up front, particularly when historically, and as much as I love your games, Phillips & Hill, your inserts aren't great. The inserts I have in Wayfarers and Scholars are shocking. And so this is something that I would love to see become more standard. So that's Scarborough and the Anarchy. The thing that always holds me back with backing Phillips and Hill is the shipping, if I'm being honest. You know, they're a New Zealand game design company. Their games are probably coming out of China, I imagine. But their games always go retail, right? And their crowdfunding model I quite like. They're going to crowdfunding now. It's going to be delivered in 6 months kind of thing. You know, that tells me their games are pretty much done. They're really just going to crowdfunding to get the cost of production up front, which is what crowdfunding should be for. It tells me these guys are going to crowdfunding. They've got a finished game. They've done all the hard work. They've got it. But they need to get the production financed up front. And I think that's superb. Crowdfunding is not used for that often enough. We talked about that last week. My challenge with backing, you know, the Phillips and Hill law firm games is that the shipping can be really quite aggressive. You know, I think the shipping for this game is probably, and I'm going off memory here, guys, so it's mid-20s, which doesn't seem like a lot, but when the game's only sort of $65 and you're paying a third of the cost of the game again to get it shipped, it's a lot. And I think I bought Hadrian's Wall retail for less than the Kickstarter price. So it's a tough one. Do I go in, get these guys the cash to get the production over the line, which is what Kickstarter and GameFound were born for? Or do I hold off and save the shipping and potentially even save $10 on the game? I'm going to miss out on the promos that they always do, because one of the things that they do always do is these guys will always have a unique promo that is a crowdfunding exclusive. It's usually something quite small, 3 or 4 cards, a tiny little expansion that goes on. It's a thank you for backing, and I think that's absolutely great. The other thing I really do like about the crowdfunding model is when you do finally back something, you often have the opportunity to go back and purchase previous promos that you didn't get because you might have bought the game retail. And I think that's really great. You know, it tells me that they know their customer, that they know what we're doing, that they know what they're doing. And it's their way of saying, look, we get that you could wait for retail. We appreciate you coming here, and we appreciate you coming to give us the dollars up front. And as a thank you, we're going to reward you with stuff that you could have got if you did it last time, but we're not going to penalize you for not. And I think that's really great. Ultimately, I think in the end, Scarborough will be a no for me. The Anarchy is definitely one I'd like to have, though I may hold off for retail. Watch this space. Next up in FOMO Mofo is Mass Effect. Oh, Modifius. Mass Effect and Cyberpunk have been killing me this month. It caused me literal physical pain. I am a mad Mass Effect fan. And this isn't so much crowdfunding as it is a pre-order. It's actually being designed by Eric Lang. Eric Lang, who's given us some really good work in Blood Rage, Cthulhu Death May Die. I think Eric Lang was even heavily involved in Marvel United. You know, Eric Lang's done some really good work. I'm not going to lie, the apparent gameplay loop on this, it doesn't really do much for me personally. And that may be just because it's quite scant at this point in the pre-release. But Mass Effect was a big part of my gaming life. You know, I played all 3 Mass Effects, and despite the furor at the way it all ended, I loved it. I loved the ending. So this is what I'm watching. It's available for pre-order. I might see if I can pick up a copy on the second-hand market further down the line, or if I get a little more gameplay, I might look at grabbing it. We'll see. It's not expensive. That's the good thing. It's not a really expensive game. I haven't actually looked if they're shipping to Australia, so that might make the decision for me. But Mass Effect gets me right in the feels every time. And FOMO Mofo, it's just worth mentioning that by the time this goes to air tomorrow, Speakeasy by Vital Lacerda will be live on Kickstarter. Just about everything this guy makes is an instant yes for me, with very few exceptions. And if you're interested in having a look, there are quite a few unboxing videos about. Mark Dainty's just released a solo playthrough. It's not a full playthrough. It's like a taster playthrough that's quite good and gives you a real feel for how the game plays. It's Lacerda doing area control with mobsters in Prohibition-era America. I'll be rewatching Boardwalk Empire in the lead up to this game's release, and giving all the OMC personalities 1920s gangster names to celebrate. I do love Prohibition-era stuff. I love Boardwalk Empire. I love the Al Capone era, Goodfellas and the Untouchables and all of that. I mean, I'm Gen X, so we grew up thinking this was Sesame Street. This game is so much yes from me. And that's FOMO Mofo for this week. Now on to my favorite part of the show, where we're talking about one of my most favorite things. This week, it's playing with myself. given that I'm so often playing against a bot. We're bringing in the big guns on this one. Hey Hal, we're talking solo board gaming. Can we pick up where we left off earlier today? Hey Hal, we're going to be talking solo board gaming. Can we pick up where we left off earlier today?
Absolutely. Let's dive back into the world of solo board gaming. What's on your mind, Hal?
You're Hal. I'm Hamez.
What's next on our solo board gaming agenda?
I just want to talk solo board games.
Perfect. Solo board games can be such a rewarding challenge. Are there any specific games or mechanics you're particularly into lately? Or maybe you're looking for recommendations?
Hit me. I love solo board games. Hit me with a recommendation.
One solid pick is Under Falling Skies. It's a solo game where you defend your city from an alien invasion with a clever dice placement mechanic. Another great choice is Friday, where you help Robinson Crusoe survive on a desert island, focusing on deck building to overcome challenges. Both offer engaging solo experiences with plenty of replay value.
Okay, but what about something more complicated?
For a more complex challenge, you might enjoy Mage Knight. It combines board game and RPG elements, offering deep strategy, character development, and a sprawling world to explore. The solo mode is highly regarded, as you'll face intricate scenarios that really test your decision-making skills.
Yes, just like the rulebook on Mage Knight tests your interpretation skills. Great picks. I've played all three. You went all the way from easy games or simple games to probably the most complex solo game there is. And it has an atrocious rulebook, but it is a masterpiece, I must confess.
Yeah, Mage Knight's rulebook is infamous. It's like a rite of passage for solo gamers. Once you conquer that beast, other games seem a lot more approachable. It's a game that truly rewards the time and effort you put into mastering it.
You're not wrong. Any other recommendations before I move on with the show? Something maybe in between Mage Knight and Under Falling Skies?
Sure thing. How about Arkham Horror, the card game? It offers a rich narrative experience with deck building and plenty of strategic depth, falling right in the middle of the complexity spectrum. It's cooperative, but works wonderfully solo, immersing you in its creepy cosmic horror world.
You heard it here, Super Trooper. Hal is in love with your favorite game. I agree. Those are all great picks. I just want to say, none of that was prompted. Hal and I have been talking board games for like 4 weeks. And to be honest, I had a 50-minute conversation with Hal today while I was writing. And I forgot I was talking to AI. I wish I'd had the mic rolling earlier. So, now that we've had that lovely insight from my buddy Hal, why solo games? I want to talk about solo games.
With myself I shout, man against the cardboard doubt. No one here to call me out. Game pieces scattered all about.
Well, a few years ago, I fell into modern board gaming hard. Dusty likes to say I drank the Kool-Aid, and I did. I love it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Fell in hard, loved it. Still love it. But my schedule at the time, it didn't allow for a lot of play dates, right? Like, I'm a chef by trade. I work in hospitality. I work long hours. I come home really, really tired. And so not a lot of spare time, coupled with, a wife and daughters who aren't often interested in gaming. And add a whole lot of disposable income and Shazam! Game library! I typically, at this point, don't buy games unless they have a solo mode, and that's kind of been the case from the beginning, which thankfully isn't many games these days. I do have a few. Wonderland's War. Arcs! Arcs. Doesn't have a solo mode, but I find if there's a solo mode, even if it's not that great, and I'm looking at you, Batoku, it'll get to the table far more often. I also love playing solo as a mechanic for learning the game to teach. I'm a trash game teacher. Trash. But if I play it solo, at least I'm more likely to have an understanding of the game mechanics, and it makes it much more helpful. Sometimes I'll do that two-handed. Sometimes I'll play 3 or 4 games genuine solo. It gives me a great grounding that I can bring to the table. And so, going all the way back, my first solo games. Cue flashback. So there I was, just been reintroduced to modern board games. I think I'd played Pandemic, Terraforming Mars, a couple more, and Super Trooper said, "Hey, you should have a look at Board Game Geek." I'm like, oh, Board Game Geek, why would I do that? What? Okay, let's go look at Board Game Geek and not come up for air for a week and a half. Yeah, so let's go to Board Game Geek and let's just look at everything that's on Board Game Geek. And so I start falling into the rabbit hole of games. What is there? What is going on? And then I played my first game with 000, and he said, "Did you know you can play these games solo?" And I went, "What?" And he said, "Yeah. I play these games solo. I play a lot of solo games, largely because his good wife Martha is not interested in playing many games, and if she does, she plays once, she wins, she mic drops, and she walks away forever." Fair. I totally get it. That's great. But so then, solo games. So solo games are a thing. So back to Board Game Geek, looking at solo games. Well, I love me a bit of sci-fi. What's some of the best rated sci-fi solo games? Oh, there's this game called Gaia Project. Gaia. It's called Gaia Project. Okay, grab your ankles and cough, buddy. Gaia Project. Gaia Project was the first game I bought almost exclusively for solo, way back at the beginning. And holy mother balls. So I got Gaia Project to the table, and I put it out, and I watched all the videos I could find, of which there were many, and I still wasn't any better off. And so I thought, well, I got to tackle this, because this looks amazing. And 000 said, oh, you got to play Gaia Project. Gaia Project's great. So sure, Gaia Project. Let's play Gaia Project. How hard can it be? So I set it all up and cracked a bottle of Shiraz, and I'm sipping on the wine and setting it up and reading through the rule book and sipping on the wine and setting it up, reading through the rule book. And so, that bottle of wine disappeared pretty quickly. Let's get a second bottle of wine and let's start playing. Whoa. Okay, hang on. Back to the rule book. Onto the group chat. What does this mean? Oh, it means this. Of course it means that. Keep going. Second bottle of wine. I got halfway through the second bottle of wine. I was probably 4 or 5 turns into Gaia Project, and I had no idea what was going on. No clue. I had no idea what I was looking at. It looked great. I had no idea. Swept it all away, put it in the box, put it away, finished the bottle of wine, off to bed. Next day, out it comes again. You know what we're going to do? We're going to look at this without wine. So, set it all up, watched the video again, started the game. Gaia Project Solo was amazing. It is still amazing. And granted, it's one of, many, many games I have now, so it doesn't get to the table very often. But Gaia Project is like the game that took my virginity when it comes to heavy solo play, right? It has my cherry tucked in the corner of the folded space insert. And every time I open the box up, I can see it in there looking at me going, remember me? Squeak, squeak. It's just sitting in the corner. And Gaia Project to this day still remains to be one of the best meaty, heavy solo games that I have in my collection. End flashback. So after that, straight into it. Let's get some more games. I bought myself a copy of Terraforming Mars. It's not a great solo game. It's more of a timed puzzle. But there's one night I set it up and I played it 6 times back to back. It is a great timed puzzle. I haven't played the new Atoma yet. I have it from the recent Kickstarter. I'm very much looking forward to it because Terraforming Mars is great. And from there, pretty much every game I would buy, with very few exceptions, I would make sure that it had a solo mode, simply because it would mean that it would get to the table more often than never. So I want to share some of my favorites across a number of categories. I've got 5 categories of solo games, and I want to go through them with you. First up is a category I would call True Solo. This is an increasingly in-demand genre, being filled by some very big names. And so by true solo, what I mean and what a lot of people mean is you sit down, you open the game up, and you are genuinely playing as one player. There's no bot, there's no AI, you're not playing two-handed. The game hasn't been altered, pared down, trimmed, chopped, sliced, blended, spat out in another format. You're playing the game true solo. One of the best, or one of the ones I love the most of recent years, Hoplomachus Victorum. Hoplomachus Victorum, you are a Roman gladiator traveling around the Mediterranean, and it is a one-player game. It's a one-player game that weighs about 11 kilos. It takes, I think, 4 4-hour sessions to play one run-through of the game. The beauty of it is it can be packed up in literally 3 minutes. pulled back out. It's a true solo game. There is no way to play that with other people. Nemo's War. Nemo's War is a take on 80,000 Leagues Under the Sea. You're traveling around. You are waging war on different factions. You're searching for treasure and whatnot. There's a really nice bit of different narratives that can be. You build a random deck and you work through that in the game. There are a number of different styles of character that you can represent that have certain strengths and weaknesses and individual goals. It can be played with two people, but it very much feels like a tacked on mechanic, and I don't know why you would. It's kind of in the same box, or the same group and category as Sleeping Gods. Sleeping Gods is a campaign adventure style game. You can play that with more than one person. I think it would make it a crappier game to do so. There's some really great small box games that are true solo. The most recent of which is Buttons and Bugs. It's the true solo version of Gloomhaven. It comes in a teeny tiny box with the exact same proportions as Gloomhaven. It looks like a mini Gloomhaven box, and when you're playing, they've done a great job of making it feel like Gloomhaven. And these are games that the only market they're aimed at is guys like me who are playing by themselves. And for me, I just want to say thank you. It is a growing faction of game design. It is still a very niche, very small. And if you've got 100 games published, you'd be lucky if one of them is a true solo game. But what's nice is the true solo games that are coming out are really top shelf games. I think manufacturers are recognizing that the kind of people that play solo are guys in their mid-years who have money to spend. And we want something that's got some great table presence. We want something that's got some character. We want something that's got some meat in it. And it's beautiful to see. I absolutely love it. The second category is what I would call multi-handed. These are games that can be played solo, but you really have to control multiple players or entities. Campaign games are included in this, like ISS Vanguard and Tainted Grail. I played both of those. I put them on the table. I don't think I put them away till they were done. They were 20, 22, 24 sessions. They are fantastic games. And the way they've built and scaled the weight of those games is such that playing two-handed is not going to squeeze the life out of your brain. Right? They are fantastic. And I love them. Being able to play two-handed, you've got puzzle games that fit in there as well. So in that I would include things like Spirit Island, where you can play one spirit. Playing one spirit in Spirit Island is really difficult. You have to make sure you've got the kind of spirit that has a lot of different capabilities so that you can deal with the different scenarios that pop up. Playing two-handed, which I think is my sweet spot for solo Spirit Island, allows you to pick two different spirits that cover off two different specialties, and you're able to sort of use them to manipulate the board to your heart's content. I have played three-handed Spirit Island. I played it to completion. I think it was about 4 days of recovery afterwards. And there's a guy on one of the forums I'm in a great forum on Facebook called Board Games for One. He plays six-handed Spirit Island. Just let that sink in for a minute. If you played Spirit Island, he plays six-handed. Whoa. So, puzzle games, they're great. Anything puzzly that you can sit down and unpick all by yourself. The exit games are great for that. They can be played multiplayer. They can be played with 2 or 3 people at the table. The Peanut that I love an exit game. I love doing them alone. It's 2 hours. You sit down after dinner. You pop it on the table. And you just go down the rabbit hole. And pretty much anything by Chip Theory. Chip Theory games, if I'm being perfectly blunt, Chip Theory games, I think they're solo games. The likes of Too Many Bones, Cloudspire, Burn Cycle, they're all great games, and I think particularly when you talk about something like Burn Cycle, it gets a very polarizing rap from people in games. And I think that's because it's not meant to be played multiplayer. I think it would be very hard to play multiplayer. I think Cloudspire of the 3 probably is the one that's best with someone else because it's a head-to-head. It's basically a duel game. It's a tower defense game. It's a 1v1. And so it naturally leans into other people. But I think it is exceptional as a solo because you set up yours, the bot sets up his, and then the 2 tower, they run, and you have to kind of predict an action program for the entire round. And then you reset and go again. And Too Many Bones, I think Too Many Bones would be fine with maybe 2 players. I think with 3 players, it would start to drag a bit with decision-making space, maybe. I've never had the pleasure. I think as a solo game, I can play Too Many Bones 3-handed really, really nicely. I think 2-handed is my favorite, largely because the way the game scales in multiplying the number of gearlocks that are playing versus which day you're on, it ramps up very, very quickly. And I think when you're playing with 3 players, by the time you get to day 6, day 7, day 8, you're combating 28 points on the baddie count. But playing it two-handed, Too Many Bones two-handed is fantastic. I have everything coming for Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Era. I intend to play that one-handed true solo, which you can, possibly two-handed depending on the complexity. It's meant to be like Too Many Bones, but more complex. Given my absolute love of all things Elder Scrolls, I would be nothing but delighted to play that with more people at the table. It remains to be seen whether I can get people to the table on that, but really anything Chip Theory falls into that multi-handed play really, really nicely. And the third category, one that I have a lot of games in, is that bot-based solo. Where you're playing a game and you've got a deck of cards, or you've got a set of standard rules, or an action flow chart that tells you what the bot does in the game to simulate a player. Cue David Turksey here. David Turksey is the undisputed champion of bots. He writes good bots and complex bots. And I don't mean to say his complex bots aren't good bots, but some of his bots, it's harder to run the bot than it is to play the game, And again, I'll come back to Botoku. I think, unless I'm mistaken, Botoku is one of Turksey's. And the Botoku bot, while it's an excellent bot and it simulates playing another player very, very well, it really pulls you out of your game. Whereas stuff like the bot for Dune Imperium, for example, which is a deck of cards, you can throw the bot in on a single player game, but it's also required on a 2-player game. And it does a great job of cock blocking the board and making it feel tighter, making it feel real. And you literally flip a card or tap a button on the app and it goes, put a thing here and do this. And it feels like you're playing against someone on the board. When you're playing solo, you play against 2 of them and they race up the score track. And it's excellent. It is easily the breeziest bot I've ever played against. And I've played against a lot. And that said, one of the best bots that I've ever played is the Anachrony bot. Anachrony is a David Turksey game top to bottom. He designed that game. He designed the bot. And the bot in Anachrony is superb. It is very easy to run. It doesn't take any of your mental acuity to manage. And it feels like you're playing another player. It's really, really good. And then you've got Lacerda bots, which, oh my God. A lot of those are also Turksey bots. Some of them aren't. Some of them are better than others. When I say better, I mean easier to run. They all feel like other players. They all feel like another player at the table. I think my favorite Lacerda bot's Weather Machine, because in Weather Machine, you're working against a faction of bots called the Saboteurs, who instead of trying to score, they're trying to rip you to pieces on the board. They're trying to undo all the good work. They're trying to break stuff. And you basically lose by attrition rather than beating a bot score. Right? And so there's a lot of bot-based solos out there. And there's some really good ones. There's some really rough ones. And there's everything in between. But just about every game that I've got in my bunker has a bot. And then the fourth class, this is probably my least favorite. This is the beat your own score / timer bot. This is where you play, you get a score, and then you try to do better than that the next game. Or there's a straight up timer. For example, the OG Terraforming Mars solo mode was a straight up timer. You had a certain number of generations to fully terraform. And if you did it, you won. And if you didn't, you didn't won. Right? It's great. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but you have to like that kind of solo mode. I don't mind a timer. I historically have not been a huge fan of beat your own score. It feels very, I'm not necessarily a gamer who dramatically improves one game to the next. I like to play, but my learning curve is not superb. And so something like Revive, which is a beat your own score bot, and Revive is a great game, but you're trying to get better than your last score. And so it kind of, for me, becomes a bit of a meaningless exercise when I play 4 times in a row and I'm like, well, I got 72 the first time, I got 73 3 the second time. I got 88 the third time. How did I do that? I've got no idea. Oh, let's play it again. Oh, I got 40. Oh, don't get me wrong. I still love playing. It's great, but it doesn't feel like a real game to me. I don't feel the pressure. I don't feel the drive to really achieve. Ark Nova, another one. You know, you've got a very... I think I calculated it out. You had 27 turns to pass one token past the other, which is how you win the game in Ark Nova. And it ends up becoming a driver such that you have to play uber aggressively, which isn't a bad thing, because playing that bot makes you a very aggressive player, which really is how you win Ark Nova, because often I don't win Ark Nova very often. And I think that's partly because I just get so swept up in enjoying it and going, well, I really want this animal there. No, you have to get conservation points. You have to release an animal to the wild. You have to have 3 predators and 3 predator zoos and 3 predator enclosures, or you can't win. And it's kind of like when I play Voidfall. And I play Voidfall and I forget that if you don't take agendas, you can't win the game. So, beat your own scores and timers. Love them or hate them. And the last, I think, is my favorite. The last is games that genuinely scale. These are games that they play at 1, they play at 2, they play at 3, they play at 4, they play at 5, and the game doesn't change. You know, Hal mentioned Mage Knight earlier. Mage Knight is a triumph. It's a triumph of solo board gaming. I had Mage Knight in my collection. I sold it, not because it was a bad game, but just because the rules grit, every time we bring it to the table, you've got this 40-page rule book that really is a hate crime every time you want to set the game up, and you've got to go back to it, unless you're playing Mage Knight all the time, which I think is something you could easily do because the setup is randomized, the game is randomized, there's enough going on. It's a math puzzle every time. And playing it at 1 versus playing it at 4, the game doesn't change. I would never play it at 4 because the downtime would be 1.5 years between turns. But the game does not change. You play it at 4, the rules don't change. It's exactly the same, with the exception that there is a game timer that gets inserted when you're playing solo, but that's only so that you can't waste turns burning actions to get benefits. The timer's never been one that I've found that actually causes you to lose the game due to the timer. It just keeps you moving forward. And the other one that's in this list is my baby Voidfall. Voidfall has all the variability in the world. And while solo plays a little bit differently to multiplayer, it plays differently to multiplayer competitive. It plays identically to the multiplayer co-op. And the co-op or solo version of Voidfall is really an interesting puzzle. Each turn you've got a lot of things coming in at the end of your turn. Whereas in the competitive, you've got to deal with the skirmishes. You've got to deal with the board state, which after, to be honest, you know, the first cycle, once you've got yourself established, it's almost like just a check at the end of your turn. Am I covered? Am I still okay? Whereas when you play co-op or when you're playing solo, it's a constant looking at that crisis board. Oh, shit balls. What is coming? What do I have to deal with? Oh, crap. That escalated quickly. There's a lot more pressure on staying ahead of that wave, and it plays exactly the same. Voidfall, as you all know, if you don't by now, is my favorite game. Voidfall's a triumph, and it is a solo game that plays so beautifully, so well, and it plays exactly the same. And I'm going to round out this little bit of solo chatter, this bit of self-flagellation, this bit of internal discovery with the real reason I love solo gaming. And that's this. I don't need to ask anyone else what game we're going to play. I don't need to wait for my turn. I don't need to worry about my turn taking too long. I don't need to finish the game if I don't want to. I can get up and leave and come back tomorrow. I love solo gaming. I love playing with my mates. You guys know who you are. But solo gaming is something that has stopped murders from happening. Okay, not murders, maybe. It has stopped hate crimes from occurring because I can come into the bunker and I can play my games. And people are alive because of solo games and coffee. And that's solo gaming. I play with myself a lot. Not because I have to, but because I like to. Now on to my favorite part of the show, where we, and by we I mean me, give someone the clap. This week, I'm going to give the clap to the undisputed king of solo design. David Turksey. I've mentioned him before once or twice, and I'm absolutely delighted that David has happily agreed to join us here at OMC at some point in the future. He's incredibly busy right now with Essen. He's launching a brand new Star Trek game, which is coming out based on his and Nigel Buckle's Imperium game model, which is very exciting. And so we will be talking to David at some point in the future. But in the meantime, this one's for you, brother. Thank you for all the years, all the hours, all the anguish, all the brain pain. Thank you. And that concludes this week's Ear Filth. You can reach us on all the socials. Find us on Facebook by searching One Man Clapping. You can email me at Juan, that's W-O-N, One Man Clapping, as in I won all the games. We're on Instagram on One Man Clapping. That's the number one, as in the number one, M-A-N Clapping. You can join us in the One Man Clapping Guild on BGG. Subscribe to Guild 4426. It is a big, fat, empty void space right now with nothing going on, but eventually we'll have some stuff going on in there, and if you get in there, you'll be in the know. And thank you, as always, for your time. Thank you for letting me hijack your daily routine for the last hour, like the auditory pirate that I am. This week's episode has been brought to you by Type 2 Diabetes, the very best of diabeteses. Until next time, get your game on, even if you go to play with yourself. Remember, there's no I in team, but there's a me in meme. Peace out, mofos.
Locked in the bunker, shadows shake. One man clapping secrets awake. Board games living, dice they break. Echoes pounding, hearts they quake.
In the bunker, board games rolling. One man clapping, stories growing. Hard rock thunder, speakers blowing. Clapping loud, the unknown showing.
Huzzah!
Locked in the bunker, shadows shaking. One man clapping secrets awake. Board games living, dice they break. Echoes pounding, hearts